Joining.
Here we go.
Well, let me just, I guess, start the meeting. Start the Coffee Connection by first of all saying hello from South Africa. I'm standing in for Desi this week. Absolutely delighted to do so. I think, yeah, don't forget to share your contact details in the chat. This is a networking event, of course. So please do that, and always save the chat at the end. Today I'm really chuffed I get to chat to my great friend Kim James. It's always such an absolute pleasure. Yep, Kim is director of UAV Aerial Works, a drone operator in South Africa, or operations, should I say. Kim is also known as the Drone Chick. Absolutely passionate about this wonderful industry. Her company, I think, is it about 7 years now, Kim? It's eight, fantastic. 8 years operating. Kim was honored last year at the Women and Drones 2023 Women to Watch in Emerging Aviation Technologies. And Kim is just amazing. I can't say it in any other way. Kim is the bee's knees in the South African drone industry, and it's my great pleasure to introduce her. She's going to talk to us about the National Aviation Gender Summit that was held last month. That's aiming to, I think the slogan is "Lift as we rise: the journey towards 2030," and how to increase the number of women in the aviation industry. So, Kim, over to you. Thank you for joining us.
My friend, thank you for that lovely intro. We're just all passionate about what we do. Like Charlotte says, you know, we're passionate about aviation. We're passionate about our colleagues in the industry. And so what better way to, you know, lift as we rise than by sharing what we do. And, you know, forums like this are just amazing. I have to say, I haven't been on Coffee Connections for so long, and I feel so bad. But, you know, as our business has grown, it's been very difficult to prioritize, you know, between the stuff that makes you money and the stuff that fills your soul. And I always talk about that balance that I need to manage. But it's so nice to be on here with you all. So I wasn't going to share a presentation. I mean, basically, I just wanted to share what the Civil Aviation Authority, which is the equivalent of your FAA, did, and they have been doing it here since 2019. But I just put some slides together, basically some photographs, so I can kind of share with you the feel. It was amazing. I didn't really think I would ever be invited to something like that, and they did, and they invited me to be on a panel. So I was like, huge pressure in a way, because the Civil Aviation Authority is the regulator that regulates our business. You know, they come and scratch around in our business once a year, and then if we're deemed to have been good children, then we'll get the privilege of operating for another year. And so, you know, sitting in front of them and sharing some stuff, you know, was kind of opening yourself up. But it was so amazing. So let me just quickly share, if I can. Let's see. Here we go. Okay, see if this one will work. Oops. Okay, can you guys see this nice colorful slide? So they called it NAGS, National Aviation Gender Summit. As I say, they the Civil Aviation Authority has been running this summit for a few years now, and they try and do it. We have different provinces, so it would be like different states or whatever. And this year it was in Durban, a place at the sea called Umhlanga. And yeah, this last year, I think our Civil Aviation Authority celebrated its 25th year. So they've been doing some cool stuff, actually. And yeah, now I know where all our money goes. I'm joking. This is being recorded, right? So no, look, they put on the best show. And as Louise already alluded to, and as you can see from this slide, the theme for this year was Lift as We Rise, which is obvious and you know, does what it says on the tin. But also what they've done is they've kind of subtagged it as the journey towards 2030. And this is based on the UN project, I think that was launched in 2018, if I'm not mistaken, which talks to Planet 50/50, which is basically gender parity, and the whole focus on getting you know, gender equality in the workplace, but on all levels, from boards right their way down, and really around decision making, but also not only having people in place in a 50/50 capacity, but also pay parity. So this was very interesting because a whole lot of people actually did presentations where they actually shared their stats from their organizations, government organizations. So, you know, this anyway, this is recorded, so I'm not going to read everything, but really around reiterating their commitment to this you know, kind of annual summit, but not just about having a summit, really around being able to year on year report on how our industry is doing from a gender parity perspective. And so this is not just something that our Civil Aviation Authority is made up. This is actually based on a global aviation gender summit by ICAO. And, you know, that was then kind of filtered down into our Department of Transport and our CAA. So this is globally supported. And then, you know, we talked here around that Lift as We Rise, the journey towards 2030, and really around what are they doing? What are we as an industry doing to address the gender gap, but also the gender pay gap? And in South Africa, there's a big transformation agenda in many of the government departments, but specifically in aviation. So I kind of stole some of these slides from the program, but they had planned, the organizers had planned for 300 delegates. And by the way, it was free attendance. You just had to get yourself to the summit, which was a one-day summit, and it was full house. So 300 people attended, and then that was excluding the speakers and the panel, and it was great. Obviously, mostly females, but a lot of men were there as well in support. And I'll talk about that a little bit more, because that just blew my mind in terms of some of the speakers. So the opening remarks and the MC basically was done by a lady who's a broadcaster and quite well known in South Africa here on the left, called Faith. Amazing. So she like set the scene. Then Poppy Khoza in the center, who is our Director of Civil Aviation Authority. She is in her third term. She is transforming our Civil Aviation Authority at a rate. She actually also did present on the CAA's stats on gender, you know, gender stats in roles from board down. And they are, I think they're almost 50/50, and in some levels of hierarchy, they're over 50% female representation. So they are doing extremely well. Poppy Khoza is well respected in the aviation industry throughout Africa. And she's also the first female that presided over, I believe it's the 43rd ICAO, what was it, summit or whatever it was, where they actually had to make decisions. And I think that one that she presided over, they actually had to decide on excluding Russia. There was some really, like, it wasn't just okay, you're in the seat and, you know, great. She actually had to preside over some serious topics. So she's very well respected, and she says the right thing, does the right thing, and she travels around Africa collecting awards. We actually, as a Civil Aviation Authority, have won a lot of awards for safety, airports, quality of airports, etc. So she's doing extremely well. So she did the opening remarks. I mean, the whole setting was just fabulous. And then so she's the director. She basically heads up the CAA, and then so she is Poppy Khoza, as they were reiterating, and the chairperson is Ernest Khoza. So they are not related, and they, you know, kind of made a joke of it. But he then did a presentation here on the right, and he was amazing. He was so cool. Like, he basically talked about, you know, being in the hotel room in the morning and kind of realizing that he now needs to iron his shirt, and he tried, but, you know, he really sees his failings as someone who could do domestic things, and massive respect for females. And he was just funny. A lot of times that we have summits that involve government departments, it's very formal, and, you know, the speeches are written, but he was hilarious. He was so good. And then we have this new government of national government of unity in South Africa after the recent elections. And it's all very exciting. We have lots of people in positions that are shaking things up. And this guy on the left is the new Deputy Minister of Transport. And he's 37 years old. He got into politics at the age of 24. And he stood up, and we had goosebumps the entire time as a young Black African male speaking to this audience of predominantly African females. He literally started talking about gender parity and gender respect and respect for the female. And culturally, in a lot of cultures, but specifically in South Africa, we have this thing called lobola, where, you know, on a marriage proposal, the man's family has to be paid a lot of money. And he basically said, like, you know, respect for females is not only in the workplace, it should be in the home. And why are we still paying for our wives? And everyone was just like went crazy in a good way, and he just called stuff out. It was just amazing. So, like, the scene was set, it was casual, but it was, you know, touching on some serious stuff, and it was just amazing. So he's going to do some great things. And in our environment in aviation, the Department of Transport has a big hold even on us drone operators. We have to have an air service license, although we don't transport people, and it's very difficult to maintain, and even for new entrants to obtain. And he sounds like he's going to be, you know, shaking things up for sure. So it was refreshing that two men as opening official speakers just touched on some stuff that women just sat there going, wow, it's coming from the position of the support of men. And so that was just very cool. And then we had a panel where each of the speakers are heads of government departments. So we had Ms. Mdwawe, who is the head of ATNS, our Air Traffic Navigation Services, our CEO of Airports Company in South Africa, so they run all of our airports. And then, so you can read the rest here, but they all presented on where they are on gender parity in terms of positions and pay, and they're all basically making massive strides, but were open about where they were still, you know, to improve and what they were doing. And it was so real. And, you know, it wasn't just a thing of we're going to do this, which in South Africa is well, I guess maybe in politics in South Africa, in developing countries, a lot of what you hear is we're going to do this and we're going to do this and our plans are this. Well, what they presented was we've done this. In the last year since we last got together, we've done this, but we still have to do this and this and this. So it was super refreshing. You know, the fact that these, you know, super important females were standing up there literally saying they have the support of their male colleagues. They've managed to do certain things that they didn't think they were going to. It was fantastic. And then it was the panel that I was on, which was fantastic. So Faith facilitated it. And essentially, it was like I'll show you the picture now, but they talked about a table talk. So we literally sat around a table, and they also did have audience participation. And they talked about, or we were asked, and it really was a conversation. We didn't present. It was about personal stories, touching on mentorship, touching on, you know, how we ourselves have grown in our industries, the challenges we faced, talked about, you know, the normal things about imposter syndrome, blind spots, etc. Work-life balance came up, but it was such a real conversation. So some of these women are just like, I felt like I was the dumbest person there. And it was just like we all kind of met the night before and had dinner together and shared stories. So the lady here, Miss Bembe, this CEO of Camas. Camas is a French company. She has a ground handling crew training company. And so she just has to use their name because it's their curriculum she originally uses. But she also, that falls under her car rental company and her aviation company. She's amazing. She was also part of the interim South African Airways board when South African Airways was dying based on all the corruption and the tender manipulation. She was part of the board that basically uncovered all of that and kind of put in policies and things to make them profitable again. And then the next one down, Miss Bonnie, she's in her late 60s, and she has had positions that are like heads of airlines. You know, back in the day when it like, for in South Africa, a Black woman to have those positions, like she got a little bit emotional and talked about like being bullied in the workplace when she was appointed as CEO by not anyone other than females. It was crazy. Like we had these moments where her voice broke and someone in the audience asked about how she managed to work through that, and they had a little teary moment. It was just incredibly special. And then Caroline Cole, that's a crazy story. So when I flew down, I took my seats on the aircraft, and I was a little bit late, or not late, but you know, I like to board first, but I didn't. And so I said to her, "Excuse me, I'm sitting in between you and the other person." And she said, "Oh, you're Kim." And anyway, it happened to be her. So we had a the whole way, the whole flight, as Louise and I have done to the US. So Louise and I, when we did that, we had to swap so that our legs didn't get stiff. But this flight was only just over an hour, so it was fine. But Caroline used to be a professional athlete for 25 years, represented South Africa on the world stage with triathlons. You can imagine what this woman looks like. She's just muscle. So when she retired, she was like, what should I do? I don't really know why don't I just see if I can become an airline pilot? Imagine, at age 37. So she studied her PPL. she was like, okay, I can do this. That's easy. Then she did her commercial. And now at age 47, she has to build hours on type because no airline will hire her because she doesn't have enough hours on certain aircrafts. So she's working for a an airline in Eswatini, which used to be called Swaziland. It's on the South African border, to build hours. And yeah, her stories are crazy, like how she's had to, you know, crawl her way into these roles where people, you know, kind of look down on you going, why are you doing this? Like, you're too old, you know, whatever. So she's amazing. She's really cool. And then there's me. And so it was just fantastic. Where is this? Oh, I might not have put that picture in actually. Oh, what a shame. Anyway, yeah, so we sat around this table and chatted. I'd like to leave this for the ladies in the room, and you know, whoever's on. I see there's a gent who's joined us as well. So it was interesting because a lot of people spoke about being in male dominated areas, and there was lots of questions about how do you deal with, you know, being in male dominated areas. And I think Sharon and Louise definitely know my view on this, and part of my, you know, answer to that was I don't see it as male domination. I just see it as a male crowded environment, if it is indeed male crowded. I've worked in female crowded environments, and it doesn't necessarily mean that in that environment they want to dominate you. You know, we need to reframe that and just say, okay, I'm in this situation. They happen to be more males than females, and we're different, biologically different, and we behave differently. And what are we going to do about that in a situation where that you know, comes into play? And so it was very interesting. People in the group exercises and in the audience participation, and even the speakers after the panel started saying male crowded where they would have talked about, you know, male dominated. So we had some nice moments, but it was also really nice that some of our Women in Drones colleagues who are known to some of you, so on the top left, our drone Queen Ndlovu was there. And if anyone knows Queen, she will literally walk up to you and go, you come with your camera, bring it, take photos of me. So I have about 500 photos of Queen and me and others on my camera. And yeah, and then Debbie Jewett, who also wrote in Drone Professionals, I think 2 of them, she was there. And that's interesting because she lives in that province, and so I haven't seen her in like 5 years probably. And then Caroline Cole on the bottom left. But you can see here on the right hand side, I mean, it was a full house and everyone participated. It was just fantastic. Yeah, and then you know, we had the big thing that in the afternoon was a motivational talk by someone who started out her career having studied finance. This is Miss Sipho Sikhakhane, and she started working in the likes of McKinsey. So she did the whole Big Four consulting. Found herself in boardrooms, and anyway, she's got her own company. She sits on boards of all sorts of very important, very big companies, but she's also a motivational speaker, and she was just phenomenal as well. Oh, here is our little runway talk. So they actually had a literal runway behind us, and that was us at the table. So that was quite neat, I thought. And that's Sipho, who was just amazing. And I'll end off by saying that I wouldn't normally be the selfie queen, but I did on that day. And so I can, oh, how come this is now not, why on my slides it's not,
What is it?
it seems to be stuck. I'll see what I can do now. How come it's not? Oh, okay. Anyway, let's see. Wow. My last slide is the most important slide. Anyway, so after the conference, I walked up to Sipu and we shared some stories about banking and big boardrooms and stuff. And then I walked up to Poppy Koza, and I said to her, I wanted to chat with her. Let me just, why is this not allowing me? Let me just unshare.
Yeah.
And then share again. I don't know why it's doing that. No, hey, let me just stop share. Gosh, at the pinnacle. Start again. Let's do that. Come on. Let's do that. Okay. Hey, it's not allowing me to show this picture. We just actually see if it's still there. It might not even be there. Sorry, guys. Let's see if this will do it. Okay, here we go. Anyway, so I walked up to Poppy and I just said, thank you so much for inviting me. Here we go. Thank you so much for inviting me. It was a privilege being here. And she had some nice words to say. And she even said I was inspirational. Anyway, the point is, can anyone spot the Women in Drones Africa pins? Because I had one on and then I took one and I handed it to her. And I said, you are now an honorary member of Women in Drones Africa. And she put it on. And she was like, oh, I've been following your work. We should definitely chat. And then she asked me, what we've been working on. And I told her about our Build Your Hours program that we did recently. And I shared this with Louise and Sharon, but she wants to see how the CAA can get involved. And I was just thrilled. Anyway, it gets topped by the fact that a few hours of rest then led into the evening's cocktail party, which was basically a networking, fully catered, drinks, sushi, snacks, whatever, canapes, and a lot of dancing. And there Poppy was, still in her outfit, still with her Women in Drones pin on. So I was like, let's go. Anyway, so we all left there completely inspired. And what really stood out for me was how much has been done and how proud, I am of being in the South African drone industry. I was telling Sheila and Louise just before you all joined that, in South Africa, we're quick to down ourselves and belittle ourselves, and specifically in aviation and the drone industry, we will often talk about how bad our regulations are for the business and how behind we are, etc., etc. And it was just so nice to see that we are actually progressing. And although we've still got a way to go in terms of drone pilots population, in terms of gender parity, we have moved up. It's very difficult to get stats from the CAA. I have now made friends with one of the ladies who works in the communication department, so I have been getting a little bit of information. But just to see how far we've come in the last few years, and seeing it and hearing from senior officials as to what they are doing about it and what they have done is just really refreshing. And then I thought I would just lastly share, and I'm not going to take up the whole up until the hour, but when we were in Ireland, that's Sharon and Louise and Desi and a few others that you will know who I don't know are on here. But it was interesting in that we had such a nice trip, but it also was quite obvious that the drone industry there is also still developing, and although they had a more open industry and now they were kind of clamping down, they had a very kind of relaxed categorization model, but their categorization model is now actually becoming more serious for the individual drone operator, who now basically has to kind of do what we have to do in South Africa in terms of getting certified as an organization, etc. I actually looked at some stats to see how far behind we are, behind the world we are. And I just want to share this a little. This is very rudimentary. It's really not a slide or anything, but I just wanted to show you. And I did this a few months ago. They probably are updated now. Can you guys see this? So I just looked at some of the countries that publish their stats on how many pilots, how many certified pilots or qualified pilots through whatever qualification or certification program you have. And you guys would recognize these. And again, there's probably lots of different stats that you can pull off, different sites. But, if we look at pilots per capita, per country, I mean, we are obviously, last in the pack. But none of us have more than like 1% of the population being certified drone pilots. We just have a naught in in between. But Ireland, where they have bragging rights basically on how many pilots are certified, and because we happen to have been there, that's quite an impressive stat. So is the UK. Australia, that apparently have really progressive or getting there anyway, and they have a lot of support by the Civil Aviation Authority for the policymakers. So they have funding for private companies to actually develop policies for them. So I just thought that was an interesting stat. And I know that makes me feel a little bit better about us always kind of feeling we're behind. We're behind. And this is definitely not split by gender. And I plan to kind of do that. But yeah, I mean, our industries are still small and hopefully, going in the right direction. And Sheila, Louise and I were talking about the US, and maybe it isn't going in the right direction for reasons out of our control. But yeah, it's when you look at the numbers, it sometimes makes my eyes water around how few drone pilots we have. But if we look at the per capita numbers and we compare ourselves to markets, I mean, we can slice and dice these numbers however we want. But anyway, I thought I'd just share that. It's a kind of a starting point for me to have a look at these things. Maybe we can open that for discussion at some other point. But thanks for hearing me out and allowing me to share my experience. It was a huge privilege to be able to be on that stage in front of Poppy, who was literally on the front table doing that and, recording on her phone. And I was like, this is really cool. So yeah, it was super, super inspiring. And maybe I'll bag an invite again for next year. Who knows?
Excellent. Thank you, Kim. Well, I couldn't think of anybody else who should be on that stage. But yes, awesome. And I just love the fact that you managed to give Poppy Koza a button. That's the pin. That was just the best.
Yeah, no, and she was good. I mean, I kind of secretly thought, oh, maybe she just said those things because she has to, but she didn't really have to do that. She was really kind, so it was good. That was really good. Yeah. But thanks for having me on. If anyone has questions or comments, that would be great. But yeah, I me, I can continue talking forever, but thought I'd just keep it short and share some pictures.
Sure.
That was
I was just gonna. Oh, sorry. Did somebody else speak?
I just was saying.
Say again. Who? I can't see who spoke.
I just spoke, but I was on mute. Can you hear me?
Yes, Charlotte.
Oh, great. I think it was really wonderful having been in early, woman and, early days in the computing world and seeing, with the eye on the sky always. But what's going to be interesting and what I'm doing is mapping up the enterprises with go beyond light shows, right? And what is starting to see that intersection with business is going to drive more pilots, right? When they see all the cool things that they can do. So thank you so much. I'm really glad I spent some time with you guys today. And thank you for letting me
Thanks,
do my
Charlotte. Thank
cheerleading.
you.
It's so exciting. This is huge. I even invested in Promodrone, and in 40 years of being in this world with the big guys, the little guys, Google, whoever, I've never done that. Not once. So exciting times, you guys. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Brilliant.
Charlotte.
Yeah, and thanks for sharing what you're doing too.
My name is Carla Rose, and we are working with high school students, and we are now getting into drone soccer, and we've just presented to St. Louis City Soccer to get behind us. And we have someone from the MLS who wants us to grow this and be a consultant on it, because this teaches STEM, and the way we're teaching this program is to bring your math students and get students from math, get students from science to all be a part of the drone soccer team. And so I would love to expand and get women involved in this. I think that what we're presenting is that as City Soccer, during their halftime, gets into the drone soccer, and they do not want cages around this. So we're teaching the program of how to be an instructor for drone soccer, but we're also teaching how to get your Part 107 at the same time. So we're combining this instructor's course. And then what we're hoping to do during their halftime, their fans would get to see drone soccer. And that would be word of mouth that would get it out. And then we're hoping that the MLB, our MLS person, is going to take us to other cities, that we can really expand this industry in the United States.
That's awesome.
That's great, Carla. Let us know how we can help you. I'm more than happy to connect with you and talk about how we can collaborate to help shed more light on what you're doing. That's awesome. That would be a great story for the upcoming fall issue of Vertical Space, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay.
And then Carla, I'll just toss in in addition to drone soccer, check out rocket drones as well, because they enhance the drone racing and also aim for training for the Part 107 for the students. So just to broaden it a wee bit more on you.
And just to add, this could go on forever, you guys. Going back to what I said at the beginning, where we're mashing up, and we're working, and it's interesting because I come from the world with aviation, but going on, trying to get the light show guys to understand this as another opportunity. All the guys that are already using drones for videography. So we're also working with the likes of a company like Milk and Honey, the agencies who happen to have, I always say Kelsey Grammer, but it's Travis Kelsey and the like. So they all have, and they come up from a family fund. So they all have their, what we're doing good for the world, their impact programs. So we're on the West Coast, and you got year-round opportunities to kind of expand that way. And I think this is awesome. And one of my interesting, Sheila, is my go-to guy for PR and marketing wherever I go for these last 25 years. He is the CEO of Rocket Science. And yeah, and he has actually one of his companies, and I'm sorry, I get so excited and I know I should shut up, but it's all coming together. So the timing is actually good. But he is actually got a venue that you can relate to the eVTOL. So he's got a company that is building basically condos for high net worth type vehicles, whatever they mean. And that there's a lot of things coming together in terms of how transportation in general is meshing. So exciting. So I'll you all have my stuff. So Carla, why don't you reach out to me? I've got some things in the mix right now that are directly related. And
Yeah, save the chat. I think your links are in there, Charlotte. So thank you.
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't know if
Hey,
Kim,
I
if
was just
could-
going to say, Sharon, you would remember, and I don't know how to spell it, otherwise I would have pasted it here, but is it Michaela Geller? Who, the young,
Drone soccer.
I
Yep.
think yeah, she's also doing drone soccer. I don't know what the link could be, but maybe
she's
it might
in-
be a good
she's
idea
in-
to reach out to her as well. She's really cool. She's like an upcoming, she's
Yeah,
a star.
she's in Colorado. She is about 18, I want to say, maybe 17. I think maybe she either just graduated and be
Yeah.
graduating next year from high school. Yeah.
She broke off from US Drone Soccer. It's another branch that they've created
Oh,
that I believe. I don't know the
okay.
name of it though, but yeah, Michaela is fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, we're happy to connect you with her if you like. Be happy to make that connection.
Yeah.
Okay. I was going to ask Kim. Just going back to your presentation, I was curious if I can ask if you got that kind of information. What were the gaps? Well, you know, they were sort of saying what they were reporting on, but was there a clear favorite, so to speak, for the gaps that was still obvious in the industry, in the aviation industry?
So yeah, I mean, some of the presentations highlighted that the gaps were still pay, and that was a legacy thing. So in order to actually address pay parity, they were going to have to readdress, you know, pay grade, not pay grades, but job grades and you know, kind of certain structures. And they were very open about that. So some of it's legacy stuff. And then I think AXA, I think they were like last year, they said they still had that issue and they were like just blank canvas. If you're doing this job, you're doing the same job, same pay. You know, if the outputs are the same and you're doing the same job, same pay. So I think the gaps were really around you know, in some of these government organizations, there's a lot of red tape to actually get into those roles, and they have certain fixed terms, etc. So some of the gaps were obvious just in terms of probably, let's say, bureaucracy. You know, can you find the right person with the right credentials? You can't force someone into a role without the right credentials. So, you know, if that person's term is up, who's the next person to come in with the right credentials for that role? If there isn't anyone who happens to be female, you know, and I think that's the right thing. So yeah, I mean, the gaps were really around just, you know, can we aim for 50-50? And some of them had ticked that box and some of them hadn't. I think for me, the thing that wasn't talked about was you know, that whole thing about equal outcomes, and specifically in aviation, you can't force something. You've got to be good at your job. So how do we ensure that the drone programs that we have running here ensure that the best people get through? So, you know, that we kind of started talking about it in one of the breakout groups at our table. But yeah, so it was basically the gap between where are we against the 50-50 plan.
Okay, right. No, just interesting if there was a clear marker that was sort of saying this is a gap. If we've got a couple of minutes, we've got 5 minutes left. Do you want to explain your Build Your Hours program?
Oh yeah, I can do that. Yeah, it's so interesting because anyone that I've explained it to in different countries is like, why do you have to do that? So in South Africa, in order to operate a drone for anything other than flying in your back garden. So in our regulations, it says for interest, profit, or gain, in which case it's deemed commercial, you have to have a remote pilot certificate, which is essentially like I can't even remember what that would be in dollars. Let me just work that out. But it's like a month course. We have to do a radio exam with the Aviation Authority. We have to have a medical. It's like a copy and paste. It's like a PPL light, actually. And then because we've been able to fly beyond visual line of sight for like 8 years, you just have to have a certification for it. So then that's another certification. So that training basically costs about $3,000. So imagine just to operate a drone legally, $3,000, but then you can't operate that drone legally yet. The drone needs to be registered like a vehicle. It's got a reg number. It has to have a fireproof plate on it. Like it's that ridiculous. Lots of big stickers for the reg number. And then the pilot and the drone has to be registered under an operating company that has the certificate from the CAA and the air service license. And so all of that then can go and operate. But the drone pilots coming fresh out of these funded programs, so the government has programs where they don't have to pay that $3,000. It's the transport, funded programs. So they come out of these programs with like 10 minutes of flying time, because they just shove them through, right? And they go and they do it super cheap. And so they just don't have enough capacity to actually teach them to fly. They need to really focus on getting them through the theory. So then drone operators like me don't hire them, because we subscribe to BARS, which is the Basic Aviation Risk Standard, which allows us to operate on mines. And we have to have 10 flying hours. And it's all in a logbook. So it's not just like, hey, I've got 10 hours. You have to prove it in a logbook. And it has to be flown on a registered drone. So you can't just have your hobby drone at home and do 10 hours of flying. You actually have to prove what the reg number is and where it was flown. So these kids they can't do it. Like it's a catch-22. Like, where do you get your hours? But you can't, you need experience, but where do you get experience? So under the Women in Drones Africa banner, I organized a Build Your Hours program. So, but I've had this in my mind for ages, but I kind of launched it this year at a general aviation expo called Aero. And we basically got I think it was like a 64 square meter area at this exhibition, which happened to be held at an airport, live airport, because it's a fly-in, so people can fly in and out and whatever. We were right underneath the tower, so we got permission to fly there, and we basically advertised it, and all these youth, had to come with their license to prove that they are current, and we kind of registered them, and I got my instructors in. So we, over the 3 days, kind of volunteered 30 instruction hours, and we stood with them with the radio, with the airband radio, and we let them fly. And that was kind of practicing, because it's a use it or lose it skill, as we all know. Some of them just finished their licenses. Some of them had not, flown for a year. And our licenses are only current for 2 years. So every 2 years you have to go and do a refresher. Anyway, so yeah, these people were able to come and fly. And we focused on the unemployed, because that's the whole point of giving them hours. So we actually signed and stamped their logbooks. So, at least it's something towards their experience. We hired some of them. So some of them got jobs, which is great. And we also had a little competition where two winners actually got free $3,000 courses that we're actually busy with right now. So yeah, we were super chuffed, and they just loved it. They just loved it. So yeah, spent 3 days in the sun flying with the kids, the youth. In South
Excellent.
Africa, youth is up to 34, by the way. So we call them kids, but they're not kids. Yeah, it was
Brilliant.
very special. But and we're gonna do more of it. Of course, we
Mm.
just need to plan it.
Great. Oh, that sounds excellent. Well, thank you very much, Kim. Thanks so much for sharing what was spoken about at the summit, and equally telling us about your Build Your Hours program there. But thanks for everything that you do in the South African drone industry and beyond. Really great to have you on
Thank you.
the Coffee Connection. And yes, thank you
Thank you so
everybody
much
for
for
joining
having
us.
me, and good to meet
Yeah.
you all. See you again
Yeah.
soon.
Come to
And
San
Desi's back.
Diego, September 24th. It's going to be gorgeous. A lot of people are flying.
Yes, I wish.
It's a little long for you. We'll come
Brilliant.
your way next time. All
Hey,
right.
thanks,
Peace
Kim.
be
This was
Brilliant.
great. Thank you, Kim.
Thanks.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thanks, everybody. Take
Bye.
care. Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
That kind of wraps it up.